Hi, my name is Chloe Reams, and I'm going to be discussing my animal patterns lesson plan. And while I read this, I'm going to be going from top to bottom. So the first thing I wanted to discuss is the top left corner, the first box you see there, and that is my date, time, activity, and group, which is the age group. And here you see 7/15/2026, time 10 a.m., activity animal patterns, and group is 4 to 5-year-old children. So that's important for a sub coming in and also for us as teachers to know when we're going to be doing this lesson plan and at what time. On the other side, we've got on a right side top of the lesson plan, this is a little message here that says this lesson plan is based on Georgia Standards of Early Childhood Development, specifically the mathematical domain, performance standard MKG 3B, extend a given pattern and recognize similarities in different patterns. Performance indicators copies a pattern using sounds or physical movements. And that's going to be important as we move on. So here on our developmental domain, mathematical development, just like we read up top, and then our subdomain A is cognitive development and language literacy. So those things are also domains that we are going to be reaching as we go into this lesson. And our developmental expectation is children will show understanding of patterns in sound and physical movement. Performance standard is MKG 3B, extend a given pattern and recognize similarities in different patterns. Performance indicators copies a pattern using sounds or physical movements. Our subdomain B would be mathematical thinking, and developmental expectation there would be children show understanding of patterns by repeating the sequence of noises and movements they see in the lesson. Those are our developmental domains that we're going to be trying to reach and approach when teaching this lesson, and that is a good guideline to follow in terms of what they're going to be learning today. Down here we've got our developmental goals, and here we'll see we want the children to learn during this lesson how to follow directions, take turns, show understanding of animal sounds and movements, repeat a pattern physically and verbally, discuss ideas with classmates and teacher, and extend on a pattern. And these are our goals for that lesson. So we want to be able to notice if those children are able to follow directions of what we're doing in our lesson, if they're able to wait and take turns with their friends, if they're able to show understanding of sounds and movements, repeat patterns physically or verbally, discuss ideas with classmates and teacher, and extend on that pattern. And then below there, we've got our learning expectations. So while repeating sounds and body movements connected to familiar animals, the students will learn how to create a sound pattern and movement pattern. They will learn how to follow along with a sequence, and they will learn how to coordinate their movements with gross motor skills. So that's another domain we'll be kind of approaching there, is the physical domain. But here we're talking about how that we want to see if the children can repeat the sounds that they hear, repeat the movements they see, and connect those things to familiar animals. So familiar animals will help them to be able to easily find a movement or a sound to connect to that animal and to create that sequence of pattern. So the next box is going to talk about our materials that are needed for this lesson, and this is a very simple one. All we really need is a whiteboard and multicolored dry erase markers, so we can draw a little animal pattern there, and that would be also optional if we want to include technology into the lesson. We can have a computer and an animal video, and maybe some other additional videos or pictures or images to extend on that lesson. Below there also you could use a smart board to include technology too. Then below that we've got our motivation/introduction, and there we are going to be drawing an elephant, monkey, and a bird on the dry erase board in that order. So elephant, monkey, bird. And this can be done while the children are playing during free play, or it can be done in the morning before the children come into the classroom. and maybe covered up with a sheet of paper. But we want to do this before the kids go and sit down, so then after we've got it written down or drawn out, we can invite the children when it's time, maybe after a transition. Invite the children to circle time, and that would preferably be where the whiteboard is, and invite them to sit down on the circle time rug, show them the board, and ask them, what do you see here? And discuss the animals with the class. So we'll let them and offer them the time to discuss the animals. We'll let them raise their hand and talk about what they see, take turns, and also discuss maybe the color of the animal, maybe discuss a movement that the animal makes, a sound that the animal makes, and that sort of thing. Then we move on to our procedure, which is the following box beneath the introduction. And in our procedure, it would be after introducing the animals and asking them those open-ended questions. We would come up with a sound and a movement, one for each animal, with the help of the children. So as we were discussing the sounds that the animal makes or the movements that they make, we would come up with one concrete that we all agree on, that the animal moves it. Like, for example, the elephant moves their trunk up and down and makes the sound. Then ask the children to stay seated. So we'll ask them to keep their spot until it is their turn to demonstrate the animal sounds and movements. So we'll go around the circle, and in the circle, we will have each child stand up and do the 3 movements. And we might give them some verbal guidance on that if they need a little help or a reminder, or we might prompt another child to remind them what sound or movement is expected here. And we would give them each a chance to go around the circle to show the understanding of those 3 movements and sounds in a pattern. And then once we've gone all around the circle, we'll tell the children, we've just made a pattern, and remind them and discuss that a pattern is anything that repeats itself, like elephant, monkey, bird. And then we would do it all together as a class. So we would all stand up maybe, or we would maybe even stay in our spots, but we would stand up as we did elephant. I would call out elephant, and then we'd go and lift our arm up. And then we'd say monkey, and we go ooh, ooh, ah, ah, and we'd kind of scratch around. And then we'd go bird, tweet, 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 and flutter our arms by our side. And then we might extend on that pattern if the children are showing understanding and interest there. And also that is part of our performance standards. So extending a given pattern and recognizing similarities in different patterns, and the performance indicator copies a pattern using sounds or physical movements. So we are reaching that by having this copying of the elephant, monkey, bird, and we are seeing if they're able to do that. And we're also seeing if they're able to extend that given pattern. And also recognizing similarities in different patterns is we can talk to them about, this is a way that we can extend it by saying, okay, what color is the elephant? What color is the monkey? What color is the bird? So they might say gray for elephant, brown for monkey, and red for bird. And so we would explain, that is also a pattern. So gray, brown, red is a pattern. Gray, brown, red. Gray, brown, red. And then we could ask them about other patterns that they notice or that they would create themselves. We could even give and offer them some little visuals that they can have, like each one of them have right in front of them. It might be a little basket with a gray, brown, and red dot, like a felt dot, and then they could put it in that order. So that's a way that we are making sure we're following along with the performance standard and that developmental domain. And then to end, we would have our closure and transition. So we would transition into snack time by asking the children to line up as one of the 3 animals. For example, we might say, use your hands to flutter like a bird and line up, or say hoo 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 ha 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 hoo hoo ha ha for a monkey as you line up. And this gives the children a fun way of following along with the directions of the lesson and kind of closing that up. And then lastly, for our self-evaluation and assessment at the very bottom, it says take note of what worked and what didn't work with the children, and which children could use more time practicing patterns. So for that, we're just going to take note. So we're going to find out and take time for ourselves later on, where we maybe during nap time, if you have nap time, or after work or before work, when you're doing your observations and things like that, you might take note and write down what worked with the children, which children showed that they might need more practice by maybe they weren't able to follow along with the 3-point pattern, or maybe they were kept on kind of nudging at a friend, trying to kind of escape that, following along with the directions. That you might find other the domains that they might need some help in, like cognitive development or language and literacy. Maybe they weren't able to make the sound like other kids were, and that could be something that you take your time to work with them on in the future. This can also be a time that you modify that lesson to, maybe if it didn't work well at all, you could modify it to work better for the children you have in your classroom. And that's a very important part of the lesson plan here. Thank you for listening.